Wetlands are the kidneys of the river, so the flood comes up, it goes out onto the floodplain, goes into the billabongs and the creeks, sits there for a while, slows down, the sediment drops out, the beautiful fresh water comes back into the river and the river is replenished. Wetlands are just fundamental to any healthy river system. This country is one of the driest nations on earth, and it's slowly starting to learn that water, it's a finite resource. There's something going on that we've got to realise, and I think it's the change of practice on the floodplains where people once grazed. They now have crops on them, whether that's going to be sustainable in our river systems with water quality into the future. That's the big challenge for governments at the moment. Howard Jones, we come up here to Sunraysia in the 70s. Having grown up on the Wimmera River as a kid, wandering around it, rivers and water were sort of in your blood. So we got involved in mainly irrigation water when I started across this side of the river. Then a good friend of mine in government suggested we get involved with a new group that had just started up, the Murray-Darling Wetlands Working Group. In those days it was called the New South Wales Wetlands Working Group, and it's grown from there. Well, I chaired that for 21 years with a wonderful group of people and with some pretty fantastic landowners across southern New South Wales. So we did things the way a farmer does it, because we could talk to a farmer, because a number of us were farmers, and so we spoke the same language. So it sort of grew from that, and we had a couple of successes with some of the state forests and then on the private properties, which I thought that was the most substantial move forward in establishing yourself as a preeminent group. We not only managed water and applied water and talked to communities and took the wetland game on, but when we got control of water, and we had up to 32 gigalitres of environmental water to manage on behalf of the government, that got a lot of people's attention. We said, well, okay, so we've got this water. I'm a farmer, I trade my water. Why can't I trade this? Well, you can. That focused a lot of people on us. So that was the start of the real part of our journey. So we went back to the Tees National Prize and we won it in 2007, $100,000. Probably the proudest moment of that part of my life with the people I was working with. I mean, it was pretty good standing up there, pretty humbling. And from there, they took the water off us because of human nature, went back to the government. So Deb and I, we looked at one another and said, what are we going to do now? She said, well, why don't I keep doing what I do and the networking stuff through government agencies, and you do what you do, where you can still tie in with the local where they need some water and just use the networks. We did that. So gradually we started to bring it back and started to bring on some people onto the board who had good corporate knowledge as well. So we started to fire again, and every one of those people contributed to what made probably, I think, as good a community working group in wetlands that there is in the land. So I'm hugely proud, and I think everyone that's been involved, hugely proud that Harris got us into that. And no matter where you are and what you are, if you've got an interest in water, it never lets you go. To the point we're sitting here today looking out over this, which was an old sewage pond, and people would screw their noses up at that. So then it was decommissioned, and the question, what are you going to do with it? There was no one disagreed that we ought to pursue a future for this. I mean, wetlands are dynamic things. Obviously they need water, but they need the vegetation, and the birds soon work out whether they like it or not, and the birds like this one. So in time it'll be a magnificent, healthy system. If we leave it alone, the floods will come, the floods will go. Water's not a problem to keep it topped up, which it probably needs to be. You have the water quality benefit, and I mean that's going to be hugely important with what we're facing in the Darling River now and in the Murray River. We've really got to focus on just that. Why is everything failing at the moment? They're failing because we're not looking after our wetlands. So that's our challenge now, is to realise that we can't keep doing what we're doing. We've got to turn around and take stock. What is important? Is healthy rivers, is that paramount over production? And that's always a pointy question. We've got to make that decision. So wetlands are just fundamental to any healthy river system. We're learning to gradually to manage the resource the way we're going to have to in the next 50 years, 100 years. I mean, it's going to be a different landscape. And that's the sobering thing with water. I mean, we started water reform in New South Wales back in the early 90s, which was a wonderful experience for someone who was an irrigator and had a slight interest in wetlands in those days, to where we're at now. We just got to remember what we learnt on the way and bring things back to the way they were. It's got to go back to river connectivity. So if you can't have a river going from one end to the other as the maker set it up, then you've got trouble. Everywhere downstream you wear the consequences of upstream actions. That's why the water qualities in both the Darling and the Murray, just after a flood, are back in blue-green algae, back in almost fish deaths in the Darling. We've got a perfect opportunity here with this place here, with the river next door, with the Darling just up the track, with Fletcher's Lake out there. Fletcher's Lake's a highly salinised, what used to be a freshwater system. It has now just had probably as big a flood it's had in, well, it hasn't been filled since 1976. So a huge amount of opportunity for a bit of research, taking kids out there. I'm trying to get a program going now with the local high school where we're taking the Indigenous kids out there to start with, side by side with bee meat. A lot of opportunities for the broader Indigenous involvement in all of this. The Indigenous communities, if you wander down the Darling River, every town has a community, and you take the time to talk to those people and you just see how important it is to them. And that's been forgotten, and we've got to come back to that, because they want things to go back the way they were. In many cases you can't do that. And that's the hard part of things. But I mean, they're smart enough to know that they operate in a world of now, and my dream from that point of view is that they start taking over the things, particularly the pumping that I do out there. Up to you. I can set it up so it can be all electric, and all you do is sign the documents to get the water and flick the switch, and you do the monitoring. And that self-government, self-determination, education. And so, yeah, it's just bringing people along with what's important in life in rural areas and rivers. Getting back to wetlands, I think we're facing the biggest challenge in water quality that we've ever faced in this country. Let's get to the nub of what that is, what that means to the river, and how you fix it. And you either have a sustainable irrigation industry and a sustainable river with potable water, or you have nothing. You have nothing.